Thank you so much. If you are in the live studio audience up here in the Sky Lounge, or you're watching back in your rooms, I'm your cruise host, Jason, and here we are for another edition of All Access Pass. All week long, and I only have one more. You're the second to last interview we get to do here. I get joined by another professional, another legend, someone who obviously was there, sang the songs, and who you know and love. Do me a favor, please help me in welcoming from the Searchers, Mr. Spencer James.
Afternoon, everybody.
First and foremost, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to come up and chat as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. See all these smiling faces.
I know, look at them all. They're smiling today. It's good.
It must be the drugs they're on.
Well, it is. Well, it is the 60s. They've been walking deck 7 just like I have. Yeah.
The drugs changed since the 60s, haven't they? Oh,
just slightly.
Yeah.
Let's start with a very easy one. How was it last night? You finally got on stage to perform. What'd you feel? How was it?
It was great. It was great. Did you enjoy it?
Were you guys there last night?
Yeah, it was good fun. They had a good audience. It was nice to have an audience. You know,
everything post-COVID.
Yes,
see people.
Yeah. Oh dear, that was a good one, wasn't it? Lockdown. God,
so much fun.
Oh, it was like a year off.
It was.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't. I can just retire if I want to. I was sitting at home thinking, what shall I do? What am I going to do? So I went in my studio and did another album because I had plenty of time to do it.
And we're appreciative of it. Yeah, it's. I feel like a lot of musicians. You either went one way or the other. You either took the time to record and dive deeper and maybe write or or compose, or you stepped away from it. Musicians did one or the other. You didn't really. I'm finding that in my interviews, not a lot of musicians dabbled. They either went all the way in or they pulled all the way out.
Yeah. I'm all the way in.
As they do.
As it were.
As you do.
Yeah, well, I own my own recording studio, which is for me, and we used to record the Searchers stuff there, the albums and things like that over the years, and it was great fun. But when you've got it there, you can just sort of go and have a cup of tea in the morning and think, I'll just go in for a couple of hours, and you do what you want to do, and you can go in at 3 o'clock in the morning and do things, which is great because you own it, it's all there,
sure.
It's lovely.
So let's go back a few years. Just a couple of years. Let's start way, way, way back in the beginning. How does a young Spencer James decide he wants to be a musician, and what are the early stages of it?
Oh, now, I wanted to be a drummer originally. I started playing the drums when I was young.
You wanted to be cool.
Well, yeah. I wanted to bang things for a living, I thought it was more like. And when I was playing the drums, it sounded like I was building a shed.
Yeah.
It was great. It's great fun, actually. Yeah, the thing is, I wanted to be a drummer, and I knew someone else. We used to what we call bunk off school. We used to sort of play truant, and we used to go around his house and play his drums, and I learned from him, you see, and that was great fun, but I was only 13 or getting on for 14.
Just a baby. I
was a baby. And I remember a friend of mine had a guitar, and I picked it up, and he said, this is a chord, and this is that. I went, that's easy. I'll have some of that. So then I started playing the guitar, and I just, ducked to water, really. Or was it a duck to a bicycle, one of the two?
I hear they're quite good at bicycles. That's
yeah.
fine. So you start playing guitar, and when do you realize at that stage this is actually what you want to do more than just a hobby, more than just...
Well, I can't really say when I really want to do it. I think I just enjoyed doing it. And my father, who's was very strict, he would say, you can't be a musician, you've got to get an apprenticeship and all that stuff, which I did start, engineering, and when I left school. But to be honest, I was going out and doing some little shit. I don't know, I'm not earning money at this. It's a bit of fun, this. Why do I want to go on an apprenticeship? So I dumped the apprenticeship, and I just bummed around playing, really. That's what you do.
I'm sure your father was quite proud.
Well, the only time he was proud was when I turned up on TV, and he went, oh, could you get some autographs from my friends? Up till then, I was a pariah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And how young were you when the first class came together?
Was actually, it was 19... and I was coming on 20. As I said, I just had to explain this in my show, which you've probably heard this now.
Half of them have seen it, yeah.
Yeah, what happened was there was an album to be done, and it all happened because the bass player from my band used to be in White Plains, and he was also in the Flower Pot Men. Do you remember those hits? And he was also he was on a lot of sessions singing harmonies, like he was on things like, Jeff Beck's hit,
The one?
Eh?
The one hit that Jeff Beck had?
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
hit that Beck
He was
had.
on, but he was doing lots of stuff, and he knew John Carter, and I got dragged in from there.
Got it.
And how I knew him as well is because I was asked when I was a teenager that the White Plains had a few hits over in England, and he said to me, "Look, the guitarist is ill. Can you come and play a couple of shows with me?" So I was a greenhorn, I got in the van. We had a rehearsal around the singer's Pete Nelson's house. And I've got little bits of paper and I'm writing that. Oh, yeah, okay. Like, that wasn't a rehearsal. Sit the guitar. Oh, yeah, that'll do. Anyway, so that was it. We got in this van and the roadie drove us, and, the van's, the heater never works.
Of course.
These vans, and etc. So we go up north and we get to this gig, and he said to me, "Do you know any songs?" I said, "Yeah, I do know a few songs." And he said, "Well, sing a song." And I had all these bits of paper on the amplifier, the big amplifier, and all that, and I'm looking at it going like this, and I said, "Yeah, I can do a song." And I did I did Summertime Blues, like a rock song. You know what I mean? I went, yeah, I'm giving it all this. And I remember Pete had this tambourine. It was this big. And he was giving this like this. And I thought, this is fun, isn't it? And I remember afterwards, he went, "Oh, that was great, that." And I said, "Really? Really?"
You look behind you.
Yeah. And then he was counting out the money. It was all this pile of money. Because they were, big hit band. And he gave me a wad of money. And I thought, whoa. Hey, who needs an apprenticeship?
You're onto something now.
Yeah. Well, I thought, and then the girls started, noticing me.
Ooh.
Well, if you've got girls noticing you, that's the job to have.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Girls and a little bit of cash. What else does a man need?
Girls and cash. What more do you
What
want?
more could you possibly want?
Yeah.
And then Beach Baby explodes.
Yeah. Well.
I've been humming the song all day, by the way, knowing I was doing this.
Yeah. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
In my head, that's how it goes.
Well,
sadly.
When it charted, and there was a sad history to it, because we went on Top of the Pops, which was, does anyone know that?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was a big thing in the day, because there wasn't many, and if you're on Top of the Pops, you'd climb the charts even further. So it got in, I think it got into number 13, and it's brilliant. It's shot in
England.
In England, yeah. And I remember I got the phone call, and I tell the story about my mum sort of going, "Yeah, very nice." And you recorded it. Well, you went to the studios on the Wednesday, and it was shown on the Thursday. Sure. And because you had to use the musicians in Top of the Pops, like the orchestra, because if you had more than the band on there, like you had on the record, they started all the singing. You have to use the musicians. So we went through it all, and we did it, etc. It took all day and that, and then had to re-sing it and all this and redo it, and then we did Top of the Pops, and great. And then the Musicians Union decided to have a strike, so it was blacked out for weeks. So we were just left with it being 13, and if we'd had the actual Top of the Pops, it'd probably gone to number 1. But it went to number 3 in America.
In America, it exploded over here.
And it did very well in Australia and all that, and Europe. So, we lived on it for a little while. Yeah. But it was great fun,
It's such a catchy song, and it's...
Yeah, John who's Carter, who was the producer, but he also wrote the song. He wrote Funny, he was in, what's the band? Funny How Love Can Be was, they had a hit with that, and he'd written a lot of songs for other people, and that he wrote a lot of jingles, etc. And but he was a clever guy for that stuff, And I remember when they were doing the harmonies, there was 32 voices.
As you do.
32 voices. So when you listen to it, you can think there's about 32 voices being recorded on there,
It was just him doing all 32 voices.
Well, no,
I'm joking.
There was other people on it, But yeah, it was great. It was good fun.
And then from there, Nightfly, is that what's next?
Oh, God, you've done your own work, haven't you?
Little homework.
Well, Nightfly, what happened was after First Class, etc., we sort of fizzled out because we're talking the 70s, you see. Right. And then it was revived a little bit abroad in Europe, and we had to go out and do some TVs, and we did a little tour. and things like that. And then it all sort of like fizzled out. And but in between that, a friend of mine was called Zach Starkey. You know who he is? Oh, I'd know. He's just someone who plays the drums. And he was a friend of mine and just happened to have a famous dad. You know. Anyway, he used to come and see me play, and he was a friend, and etc. And he was in this band that was going to do this thing, a tour, a 6-week tour, and it was called Nightfly. And it had the lead guitarist from Whitesnake, had the bass player from Bad Company. The keyboard player was from Mick Simmons, who was from Judy Zook, and he did Mike Oldfield. No, a very clever guy. And anyway, they'd all written the songs, and etc. So he got me in because the guy who was going to do it, sing and play guitar as well, he dropped out. I think his wife told him he's not allowed to go out.
Yeah, well,
Oh, you're not doing that. There's girls involved. So yeah, so I went and rehearsed with them, you know, and I made the mistake of doing everything in the same key, you know, and I'm not really, I mean, I can sing rock and I can do all that, but I'm more of a pop singer, really. So we did the 6 weeks tour, and I always remember things like we did Marquee in London near the end of the tour, and Ringo comes up and he says, oh, come on, Spencer, we're going to go down and Tramps and have a drink and all that, and I'm sitting there, and there's Zach and I, there's Dan Aykroyd, you know, and what's his name, Rick Parfitt, we're all sitting around here. And then Ringo goes, hey, Spencer, come on, we're going to sing for some food. Now, we're talking 12 o'clock at night, so we've all had a few drinks. Said, come on, Spencer, we'll go and see the chef to get some food. So, all right then. So I walks up with him. He said, come on, we'll sing to him. So he started singing one cornet, just one cornetto. We did all this. And the chef came out and went, off, off. So that was the end of that. But yeah, he was fun and yeah, Ringo was a good laugh actually. He's always joking about. But yeah.
And so that was what years was Nightfly for you?
Well, actually, it was in '85.
85.
Yeah.
Because that's about the time that Mike Pender retired, right?
He
or
did,
was
yeah.
stepping away.
Yeah.
And then you get the call from the Searchers.
I get a call. Yeah, I get a call from their manager, agent, and he said, Spence, he said, we finished this tour, and I didn't want to do it anymore with the Nightfly. I thought, this is getting wild. I mean, Mick...
You're at the point where you're singing for food. I mean, goodness.
Yeah, and it was all right, but we didn't get the deal we wanted at the end of it with the record company, and so I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I spoke to, I knew their manager agent, you see, and I did work before for him, and I said, oh, I'm just going to go, I'll do some more work, you know, and get another band together. And he said to me, oh, right, okay, you know. 2 days later, I got a phone call. He said, do you remember the Searchers? You played on the same show with them. I said, oh, yeah, that's it. So he said, they're looking for a singer. I said, well, really? So he said, yeah. He said, would you be interested? I said, well, I don't know. So he said, well, can John give you a call? So John gives me a call. I met John briefly before, and he said, oh, you know, he sort of come out with it, you know, would you be interested? And I said, well, I suppose I'm not doing much else, am I, at the moment? And I thought to myself, yeah, okay, yes. And I said, okay. And he said to me, can I give you a call back in a couple of days or the next day or so? I said, yeah, sure. So call back to a couple of days. He said, you're popular. I said, really? He said, I spoke to everybody I know in this business. They all know who you are. And he said, they all said, oh, he'd be good. Yeah, get him in. So that's how it started. And he said to me, if you want to do it, do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, all right then, okay. And then
I love how casual you are about getting a call to be the lead singer of the Searchers.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the funny thing is,
I'm free.
Going from the rocky thing and the things I'd been doing in the past, I actually thought, well, you know, is it going to last and all that? I think I'll do it for a few months. I'll do it. I said to myself, yeah, some friends of mine said, well, I said, I'll do it for a few months and, you know, and see what else I'm going to do. Because remember, I was, 32 then or something, 33? And I thought, there's a bit of life in me yet, maybe get a record deal, do something. Anyway, and it went on and it went on and it went. And we traveled. And suddenly, the first year we did some shows and then we went out and toured America.
Yeah.
And there was well, you know, loads of bands on, and Jerry Marsden, Jerry and the Pacemakers was on, and all that. And you know, it just went from strength to strength, and we would end up doing 200 shows a year around the world. That's a lot.
That's
you
a
know?
ton.
And the phone kept bloody ringing. You know what I mean? He said, and they'd give me an idea.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Oh, and I tell you what, yes, it's a good problem to have. And to be honest, we got so used to doing it and enjoying it, having some fun, you know, and it was great. Yeah.
You mentioned 200 shows a year, and one of our guest questions here is exactly right down there. How do you avoid getting stale and or burnt out in a career where sometimes you're playing upwards of 200 shows a year?
Well, the problem with doing that many shows and tours, because you're touring in England, or, you know, you'd be Britain, you'd be touring like so many months, and then you shoot out to Las Vegas for a week or two, and then you go off to Australia for 6 weeks, and it was just constant all the time. And then you had the one-nighters, then you'd fly out to Germany or Denmark, etc., be out there. We used to fly out to Germany and Denmark and literally just go there, do the show, and sometimes fly back
right
again
back.
the same night. So, you know, to get the sleep and etc. But, yeah, the problem was also is dealing with the home problems. Is get home and you had to catch up with everything, didn't you? You know, the family and things like that. You know, say to the wife, it's me. And they go, yeah. You still here? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but you sort of handled it. Yeah, we'll say you just handled it, and you became. It's not like to keep fresh. We did learn new songs. We thought of new ideas, but we didn't overdo it. If we learned a new song, it'd be like maybe one every year. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then we had enough songs to jiggle around a show, so that was good.
I think another thing that can affect people, too, when you're doing that many shows is the opposite of burnout, and that's the robotic nature of when you're doing show after show. You fall into a similar pattern, a similar rhythm, and so every show can start to kind of look the same and feel the same, and that's not burnout, it's the other end of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you're doing a show, you're doing the same show every night. You're not changing it because you're a different audience. Like, you know, I mean, who came...
Just like last night versus tonight.
Yeah. So you're going to get the same show tonight. The jokes might be different, if I can think of any.
He said might. He didn't say would. He said might.
So, because I don't know if everybody saw, you know, I mean, there are a lot of people who come in and haven't seen the show, so I'll probably go through the motions again, and I'll try and be funny, which is going to be hard. But yeah,
win them all.
But as I said, we did the same thing every night, and the jokes were the same, etc. Because it's a different audience, and you get used to that. You'll be standing there, and Frank, the bass player, does a lot of bunny, and I'm standing going. I was going to get a newspaper out and start reading it in between, you know. Oh yeah, you ready? Okay, put the phone. But you know, you just got used to it, but you knew your job. That's what your job was: to get out there, sing. Do the things. We had a bit of a break in '88. We recorded an album called Hungry Hearts, which was a lot of new songs that some of it we'd written and regurgitated one or two of the hits and things like that on it. And they were like an '80s pop version, really. You know, lots of synthesizers, and that was good. You know, that kept us a bit of alive and all that. You know.
Chris wants to know. He comes to us from New Jersey. Who were and or are your musical influences?
I get asked a lot, actually. Well, when I started, when I was a young lad, which is a long way to go now, think about that. When I was into the sort of John Mayall blues, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, all that early stuff, you know, Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac and that. And I used to work, when I also worked for a company called Marshalls, who make Marshall amps, and I used to be in their shop. And I used to demonstrate guitars and sell guitar picks and strings and things like that. And I always remembered as you know, like you get Deep Purple coming in and chatting away and said, do you want to come to the gig tonight in Lyceum or whatever? So you sort of, this is great. You know, these famous people are starting to ask me out, you know. And when we were doing that, I remember we closed the doors and I was playing the guitar and I was going, giving it all that, being
feeling like a rock star.
Yeah, giving all that. And this keyboard player he actually played organ, but he was like in a well-known band. And he said, "Hey Spence," he said, "Do you know what you're playing?" I said, "Yeah, a lot of notes." He said, "If you want to make money, play pop music." And I said, really? I said, yeah. He said, no one's going to pay you to do that because it's already been done. And I said, okay then. And that's how I graduated to start, to play more pop music.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, in case you're struggling with being funny tonight, Ken comes to us from North Carolina. He said you referenced to one of your band members as the MD, musical director, and last night's show. Have you ever considered a JD, a joke director? If you need it, I'm available.
Yeah. Well, actually, we called him the MD, the musical director, but he's actually mentally deranged.
Ah, that too.
That's how we work there. But he's a lovely guy, Graham. He's very good, and he pulls the whole thing together.
Well, Ken is here if you'd like a few extra jokes.
Yeah, I could do
so.
so.
Liven up your set.
Actually, I was saying a little joke early on. I said to the lads, I said, I was sitting on this train, and this guy sat next to me, and he said, do you want to see a picture of my wife? I said, well, yeah, all right then, trying to be polite. Yeah. He said, look at her. He said, she looks lovely, isn't she? She's beautiful. I said, oh, yeah. I said, do you want to see my wife? He said, why, is she beautiful too? I said, no, she's an optician. Well, there you go. Sorry about that.
You might have a gig, Ken. You might have a gig, Ken. All right, back there. Steve comes to us from Virginia. Oh, this is a great question. Do you have one or a couple most memorable concerts or performance, good and or bad, other, of course, than the Flower Power Cruise?
Of course, yes.
Of course, yeah.
With the Searchers, I think we did 1988. We did the event with Cliff Richard, which was which was then Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people a day. So we went on to a couple
Just
of
a couple.
songs. Yeah, and that was great. There was a lot of artists on, and we were his guests. That was fun. Yeah. That's a memorable thing to do, And when I see Cliff now, he comes up and gives me a hug and says, "How you doing, Spencer?" Which is nice. But if you tell other people that, where I live in the forest, they, hello boy, you're right there, and this, and you say to them, "Oh yeah, I was with Cliff the other day, and I was, chatting." And Cliff Richard, oh You're telling parkies, you are. You're not telling the truth there. No, yeah, but so, etc. And we used to do these shows like you'd go up and do a show with Lionel Richie up in London, and he's a lovely guy, we have picture tape with him and all that. So, but you meet all these different people, and the show's memorable. That like that. Now, we did New Year's Eve in 2000, Millennium News.
Oh, recent.
We did that with Cliff, and he had a party afterwards for his family and us, etc., in the stadium, in the place.
That's
it wasn't
wonderful.
a stadium, but yeah, you get those things,
Have you had any shows go the opposite direction that you remember for them being just
awful? Well, you do get those. You do get.
They happen.
I remember we were in America on tour, and we were going to do Walk in the Room, and we were just going to go into it, and it all sounded funny. And Frank and I looked at each other, and John had played it in the wrong key. And he went, cling, clong, like this. And we're playing the right key, and he's going, and then we stopped, and he said, my guitar's out of tune, but it wasn't.
you blamed the guitar?
You know what I mean? Yeah, John went, oh, no, it's my guitar's out of tune. And, that. But, yeah, you get the odd ones like that, and there's probably a lot more stories I can think of, but when you're sort of our age, things start passing you by, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Which is probably good and bad. Again.
When you get out of the bed, it's like these days, our age, you get out of the bed. Now, you see, when I get out of bed, I do that. If I'm not hitting wood, I'll get up.
As my grandfather always, any day this side of the grass.
That's exactly, yes.
Any day this side of the grass.
Daisies don't want to push up daisies.
No. Jim asks, aside from yourself, of course, can you name an artist or artists that you consider superb live performers? Not just performers, but live.
Live?
Who puts on your favorite live shows?
I actually...
Before or now, either one.
Yeah, well, I mean, today, these days, I think Adam Lambert, who's doing with Queen, I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it does shine big time. Carrie Underwood's another one. I think she's absolutely fantastic. So you get these ones, the new ones that are coming up, some of the fantastic voices.
What about earlier in your career? Did anyone blow you away in the live aspect?
Well, from the live, I'll tell you what, Jerry Marsden, he was always constant. Yeah. He had a great voice, and he was always constant. He was a very naughty boy. I mean, we had some fun, but I can't tell you some of the stories with him. But he was great. He's But he's got a great sense of humour, and when he sings, he's got a great voice.
Did you find yourself earlier in your career when you watched other performers, because you toured with so many wonderful entertainers over the years, and you toured globally with a lot of great talent. Did you find yourself picking up tips and tricks from people, or were you always pretty confident in what you did on stage?
No, I to be honest, I just always sang myself. I just thought, I'll just sing it, I'll just do what I can do. I don't try to impress. I don't try to say, I never had a singing lesson in my life, which I probably should have done. You know what I mean? But it's all naturally grown, as I say. I've seen a lot of people, but to be honest, no, I don't think I really picked anything up.
Is there anywhere, another question, is there anywhere in the world that you've performed that you would love to go back to, and anywhere you don't really care to go back to?
The States.
You don't care to come back here?
I love touring the States. We used to
you love it. Oh, I thought that was the bad side.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. Yeah. I mean, we used to do a lot of casinos. I remember, and you'd walk in, and these casinos have massive theatres, 4,000 or 5,000 seaters, huge. I remember going to one of them, I can't remember exactly, because we did like Niagara Falls, there was a theatre called the Falls View, or whatever it's called. I remember going to one of them, and it was so big, and I was going, I walked into the theatre and went, oh God, it's going to be... It was only us on. There was no one else. And normally, if there's a few artists on, you do quite well. I walked and I said to the guy at the stage hand, I said, it's a big, nice place, isn't it? He went, oh, yeah. And I said, have you sold many tickets? And I was thinking to say, 500, 300, or something like that, And he said, we sold 3,500 and we should get the walk-ups to fill it out. Oh, really? What, come see us? That's how you felt. You think, oh, my God. But, yeah, some of them, they said that was pretty, those are things I do like.
Any places you've toured that, you don't really need to go back to? You don't have to say.
Well, I'd say what was weird was Ireland.
Really?
Really, Ireland. I mean, great place, great people. But we did some strange... We did a little tour over there once. I remember this. It's so disorganised. They, like example, you go to the venue and the guys at the venue, he's just putting the poster up on the door in the afternoon. Oh, searchers here. And we were a big band at the time, and I remember...
And you're playing that night.
Yeah. And we went to another place, and the road crew got there, because they came over by ferry with the truck and all that, and they said, we've got this place, and there's no one here. So we came down the car and said, okay, well, he said, and the guy came, and he opened the door. And we said, well, we were playing. He said, never heard of you. We said, what? He said, he said, no, I don't know. Anyway, he actually, the funny thing is, he said, and he took us to the bar and bought us all a drink, which was really strange. Give them free drink away, thank you very much. So anyway, he said, and we mentioned, this, and he said, oh no, he sold it 3 weeks ago. So he sold the place, but not told them he'd put the searchers in. Yeah. I remember another one was a strange one. We were in Woodstock in America, and we're on this tour, and we had this. It was during the week in Woodstock, so we had this place, and it was quite big. It had a nice stage and everything, and the guy looked after us. So lovely food, everything, and we thought everything was done lovely, and I thought, oh, okay. So when it got time to play, there was no one there, and we said. He said, well, I just wanted you for me. I said, what? So we had the bar staff as well, and a few of his friends sitting there. There was 15 people. And the guy could afford to actually book us, pay us, to sing to 15 people. You know what I mean? So it's no pressure.
What's fascinating, and I don't know if you've had the same, it's much easier to perform, speak, in my experience,
to a big audience.
Yeah, give me 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. That's easy. 15? That's nerve-wracking.
That's
crazy. It's so much harder when it's one-on-one.
Well, the clapping's very quiet, isn't it? Do you know, you sit... And also, they get a bit shy about clapping. There's only a few.
Well, sure, there's only a few. You can hide in the audience at that point.
Yeah.
Steve comes to us from Parts Unknown. He says, I am a drummer, vocalist, and have always loved Searcher songs because of the harmonies. But my question is, who came up with, if you know, the intro to When You Walk in the Room? The guitar gets me every time I cover it or hear it.
You should go and see a doctor.
Yeah.
Well, actually, how that started, it was a Jackie D. Shannon song, and she actually did it first. She wrote, she actually did her version, and that's how they picked it up. Because she actually covered, I think she actually covered Needles. She wrote Walk in the Room, but she actually covered Needles and Pins, and that's when they picked it up. In those days, you know, it came over the water, you know, and the riff was in there. You know, da-dum, da-da-da-da-da. But it became iconic, that riff. I mean, as soon as you play it, everyone knows what it is. So that was the great thing about 60s music. If you heard a band start up, you'd know who it was.
For within the first
everyone
couple
had
bars.
their sound, yeah. Whereas today, it's not as...
Could be anyone.
Yeah, it could be anybody. You know, I mean, you got all these different boy bands, and when they start up, I couldn't tell you who's who.
They're boy bands. Yeah,
they're boy bands, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the current build of the band and what you guys are doing in terms of touring, where you're playing.
Yeah, what happened we retired the band in 2019. Okay, we'd all got on a bit, and we said, okay, we retire. And before we retired, and it was announced, we were going to do this. We did a tour, a farewell tour for 3 months or so, and someone approached me and said, "What about doing some solo work?" And I thought, well, I've never done solo. You know, stand up there on your own, sing, play, etc.
No place to hide.
So, and this thing about using backing tracks. So I went in my studio and I recorded everything. I mean, all the songs, everything. Recorded all the backing tracks, sang all the harmonies, did everything. Did these great backing tracks. So it was all done like I was used to. So I played guitar, sang, and did these things. And I did 60 shows within so many months. It just went on. The phone kept bloody ringing. So and that's how it started. Then it was a suggested get a band beat as well. And then I've got these great guys, they are good guys, and etc. And it's just developed from there, really. And that's what I'm doing. I mean, we did a tour last year for 2 or 3 months with our wonderful promoter who's with us and our manager as well tonight. And he put those on, and we did a lot of one-nighters and things like that. And it's escalated. We've got another tour later on in October. And, of course, I've got the Searchers tour, which is for 3 months, April, May, and June. So it's just escalated. I didn't think anyone would care.
They do. You're on the Flower Bar Cruise. These people care for sure.
Actually, I'm having a great time on here. And you are a good audience. You are a good audience. But I just want to ask something. If you're coming tonight, can you be better?
Oh, there we go. Slightly
Make more of an effort.
What's it like being? And I ask this of every artist. What is it like being on a? Let's call it a festival. Let's call this cruise a festival.
It's a festival, yeah.
Let's call it. What is it like being on a festival with all your peers and folks you've known and played with for years and years? It's got to be kind of old home week to catch up with all the
it's nice
boys.
to see. It's like Colin Blunstone. I said to him when we got on, I said, I haven't seen you in years. We did that TV show together with Suggs and all that. And he went, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? But, a lot of, you don't tour with them for ages, and then suddenly you're either touring or you see them. I mean, PJ Proby's the funny one. You know PJ Proby? Yeah. I mean, he's on with us on a tour. We've done loads of tours, and he's been on, like, the opener or whatever. Sure. And he's great, but he's a law unto himself, old PJ. Yeah. But we get to see each other over and over,
You mentioned earlier we were talking about 200 shows a year, and you were talking about your current tour dates.
Yeah.
How many dates at this point in your career, what's the ideal year? How many dates a year do you want to do? Perfect world.
A perfect world? 2.
2, perfect, yeah.
No,
2 covers the whole, yeah.
No, actually, the perfect thing would be to do not more than 60 or 80 a year. I don't want to overdo it because, you'll be wheeling me on stage soon.
Yeah. Well, I think something that gets overlooked is you hear a number of shows, it's the number of shows isn't as challenging as the travel.
Oh, the travel.
The
Oh,
travel
God,
is
yeah.
more difficult than the number of shows. So 200 shows, you got to add on a day before, a day after. You got to add on multiple days sometimes.
That's
so
it.
200 shows is a year. I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
365
I mean, it's a
days.
lot of swimming to get here.
Yeah.
I've got to swim home yet.
My arms are tired. Yeah.
Yeah. The travelling is, you spend more time travelling to do a 1 hour show. You know, you fly everywhere, you do this. And we've done some weird, example, we did a cruise, and I won't mention the name because I don't want to,
Yeah, please don't.
They flew us to Australia, right? We didn't want to do it. Oh, God, and it was only literally going on the boat for 5-6 days and flew us back. And it's a long way, it just happens to be a long way. And we kept saying, no, we kept pushing the money up, you see. I think they're not going to pay that. Well, push it. And we said, they kept saying, yeah, we'll pay that. Well, oh, no. Well, it's got to be business class or first class travel. I went, yeah, okay. And I thought, oh, God. But we did it, and it was fun, but it's just that sort of, 24 hours of travelling there, 20, but
That is a common band tactic, by the way, that we encounter all the time is we'll offer someone to come out, and we know right away they're interested, but they don't really want to do it, and they'll give us a price where we go, good Lord, and they're like, well, pay us to be interested is basically the angle, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, I understand.
No, we have to make a living,
If you, and if you don't really want to go somewhere for whatever reason, you have nothing against that cruise or that country, obviously, but if for that amount of travel in those short days, there's got to be a compensation package there that makes you interested.
Well, yes.
Versus just a normal
It is always about the travelling, and etc. And the logistics. Sometimes it's like you got to travel. You got to go to an airport. You got to park your car for a week or two, and that costs money. And you've got to do this. You've got to get everybody there. And they don't always come from the same areas.
Of course.
And it is the logistics.
A lot of logistics.
And then of course have you had the COVID injections? Have you had? Can you have a PCR test before you? 3 days before you go on, and you go, how'd you do that then? We don't do PCRs anymore in England.
Yeah,
the
States is winding down quickly too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's
which is
catching
good
up with the world, isn't it?
Yeah, shocking.
Well, I was reading actually because I looked on the things about travel, etc. When you go into America, and it said. You don't have to, from China, you don't have to have to get in the country, you don't need injections anymore, and they, etc. And I thought, well, for China? You know what I mean? You started it.
Let's not go down this path. Let's not go down this path. This will devolve quickly.
Mao Zedong started that. No. Just don't go there. Sorry about that.
Do you remember the one time Spencer James did a cruise with us? Yeah, he was great, wasn't he? It's too bad he never came back.
At least Mountsy's not in there with us anymore.
He's in Australia. I don't know what he's doing these days.
Yeah, he's doing a tour of Beijing. Yeah.
So for the folks that are watching that are going to see it tonight and the folks in the room to see it tonight, what should people expect from your shows?
It will be all the hits. It'll be the hits and the interim things. It's basically what we did last night because that's what we do. I mean, we don't start going doing too many of other people's songs, but you will get that, and I'll try and be entertaining if that will help.
He'll do his very best, and I think we'll take that. Spencer has graciously offered to sign for us, so anybody who wants some merchandise and an autograph, we're going to take him out there around the corner in just a moment. Do me a favor, my friends. Help me thank this fantastic man from the Searchers. Please put your hands together. Spencer James.
Thank you. Thank you.
Join us for another trip back to the 60s on the 2024 Flower Power Cruise. Our lineup features the legends of the Love Generation, including the Rascals, Tommy James and the Shondells, John Kay of Steppenwolf, Randy Bachman, founder of Bachman Turner Overdrive and the Guess Who, the Moody Blues' John Lodge, the Family Stone, Gary Lewis and the Playboys, the Grassroots, the Buckinghams, the Box Tops, the Cowsills, the Vogues, cruise host Peter Asher, A Spoonful of Love, and more to be added. Get to know the artists at interactive events, including Q&As and panel discussions, game shows, and more. Plus, travel back to the era of bell-bottoms and tie-dye during nightly theme parties under the Caribbean stars. Departing from Miami March 21st, 2024 on the luxurious Celebrity Summit and making stops in the beautiful ports of San Juan and St. Croix. Flower Power Cruise sells out each year, so don't wait. You don't want to miss the next grooviest trip at sea.